the dogiverse community, dog haters, whatever, we're about public safety for everyone. We don't want to see anyone getting mauled or torn up or killed by dogs.
Greetings, dog haters, one and all, from every corner of the universe. Today, we have a very special interview with Jory, who some of you may remember from her story about the half Rottweiler, half Timberwolf that could have easily killed her. You all are familiar with her, so we're going to get more into the child endangerment aspect of dog ownership, get into her story about what it was like growing up with dogs, and it's going to be lots of fun. We're going to have a fun time. So, Jory, how are you doing?
Well, better now that I'm talking to you, Chef. Thanks for
Aw.
asking. I don't know if I gave much of my family background as it pertains to dogs in the previous interview. For a brief rundown, I grew up in a rural county with my mother and her parents. My father was in a rural place. Both of my grandfathers grew up using dogs as hunting dogs, working breeds to help put food on the table or to corral animals. Okay, so back in those days, working breeds were actually used to perform some legitimate functions. At the same time, let's say in the year 1910, if a family was using a working breed for hunting to help put food on the table during a hard winter, number one, I can guarantee those dogs did not stay in the house. They were exactly that, working breeds. And if a dog, for example, if they were trying to train them from being gun shy, as it was called, if a dog turned on a human, okay, these were hunters. The humans were hunters. They could easily put a dog into line with a rifle butt or the butt of a shotgun, to make the dog behave and not be aggressive towards a human. And so, and in a rural, very rural farm areas, there was little to no danger of the dog, roaming off to harm, a child in a park or what have you, that sort of thing. And also, there weren't any excessively concerned or excessively sensitive to, oh, how dare you pop that dog on the cranium to keep it from tearing your family member's face off. See, so there was a lot they didn't have to deal with. And so that's the background I come from back in those days. Sadly, on both sides, some of my relatives became attached. I have compassion for that attachment. I understand when they were growing up, okay, these working breeds that were used for hunting did help put food on the table during difficult times. Okay, so I understand that. But they never transitioned to realizing, okay, the dangers that go on, that are there, especially when they transitioned out of subsistence farming, if that all makes sense. That's the family background. And unfortunately, because my mother was raised around some of my grandfather's working breeds, she developed a bit of dog nuttery. My dad did too. And there we go. And the story begins. My father was very irresponsible with his dogs. And I fear that my mother thought that dog could do no wrong.
So, you grew up in the time where dogs actually served somewhat of a function. They weren't lap dogs that would sit in the family dining room or anything.
Yeah, for the most part. Sadly, by the time I was like 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old, for whatever reason, I don't know why, even though my grandmother, she hated a dog being in the house because she thought they were filthy and gross and shed. Yeah. But for whatever reason, my grandfather, he would let one of his terriers are a working breed. Okay, on the old farm, they could serve some useful purposes. And due to his attachment, he would let this geriatric bull terrier. If you've ever seen a white bull terrier, God help you. It's one of those things you cannot unsee because they are ugly. Trust me. He had one of these mutants. They're so ugly, you almost feel sorry for them unless you have to interact with them. So he had this white bull terrier that he would allow in the house, I guess, for sentimental reasons. And it used to growl at me. And my grandmother used to say, "Don't touch that dog or it'll bite you." Okay, well, I have it in the house. But anyway, so um, but they didn't treat them like lap dogs or anything like that. And I don't recall my family interacting with them very much, except if my grandfather wanted to take it outside or whatever. But no, there wasn't a bunch of kissy face, fuzzy wuzzy stuff. But unfortunately, that Bull Terrier was allowed to sit in the little family room and sit on the floor and watch TV next to my grandmother. And I, being 3 or 4 years old, there's no way I should have been in that room sitting on the floor with my toys with a white Bull Terrier in the same room.
What I never understand is that they knew that the dog was dangerous, yet they still allowed you to interact with it. Because if you're a young child and you're sitting on the floor, your face is like eye level to a dog like that.
Yeah, a little kid sitting on the floor. And I think the idea was that, and this is going to sound sick and crazy, it is, that if a dog bites a child, it's because the child, in that case, it was like my grandmother said, if you try to touch that dog, he'll bite you. Like it's the child's fault if the child reaches out to touch a dog. And again, the dog was there in the family home in the living room floor. I wasn't trying to put my hand through a fence towards a strange dog, nothing like that. But the attitude was, like my mother said one time, well, children have to be taught to respect dogs. Well, it's one thing to respect the danger, but that's respecting your own safety. You know? But yeah, it's a crazy, weird thing. But a lot of times it was just kind of a common, unfortunate thing, as if it somehow like it must have been the child's fault if they got bitten by a dog. I know. Oh well.
It's never the dog's fault. It's never the dog's fault when they get shot by a police officer. It's funny because it's like okay to say like, oh, don't touch that dog because it'll bite you, but you can't say like, oh, Fluffy, don't go towards Chef, she'll kill you.
Exactly.
That would be unacceptable, and it's that doggy double standard that we see time and time again.
Yeah, very much so. And I think the safety of children comes first. And why didn't they just? They had a place in the basement with a fence. They could have put the dog. Like the twain should not meet. Keep the dog away from the child. Duh. Oh well.
And whatever happened to that dog?
Well, the good news is, yeah, and he was in his later years, crotchety. And fortunately, one day, for whatever reason, my grandfather took him to the vet. The vet euthanized him. And my grandfather, brought him back in a big, dark plastic garbage bag. And my grandfather said, here, come, we're going to see something. Junior had to go to the vet. Vet put him to sleep. I said, oh, okay. So I went and looked. He showed me the bag. He opened the bag, and I looked in there, and there was old Junior looking like he was asleep. I felt nothing, okay? So it's kind of curious. Oh, that's what a dog looks like after it's been put to sleep. Yeah. Huh, cool. And he thought it was kind of, oh, it's okay. Huh. So threat ended. And so now I say, so Junior is in the bag, and the bag is in the river. It was totally cool. It was fine. It was cool. It really was cool. Fine. Oh, wow, neat. It's fine.
Net positive.
Very much so, yes. He's in the bag, and the bag is in the river.
So you've mentioned before about your next door neighbor that bred Dobermans, which are, everyone knows these creatures are huge and strong and dangerous. So what was that like for you growing up?
Well, I got to give the man credit. His dogs never, ever, to my knowledge, got out of their kennels. Of course, I'm not in favor of breeding Dobermans and putting more of them out there. No. But again, unlike my family, I've got to get this guy credit. He had what seemed to be foolproof runs. They had kennels, runs, enclosures, but they weren't just enclosures. The top was also enclosed, so no one could jump out, and they were probably 10 feet high. So it was a total enclosure, and he had it set so they couldn't dig out either. So that's nice. Okay. And again, I don't recall any of them ever escaping from their pen to cause trouble. Now, anytime we would go to his home, and it was still scary, because when we drive up and park in his driveway, these things would make so much noise, and they would be running and just going crazy. I don't know how else to describe it. It was very frightening, a lot of racket, and they'd be just running and racing through the kennels and all that. So it was quite intimidating, to say the least. And I was very scared. I wouldn't get out of the car. unless like my mother and grandmother would, all get out together, or the owner would come out and shush up his dogs. And then I would feel safe enough to get out of the car. So fortunately, he has quit breeding Dobermans. That's good.
Oh.
Again, like I said, am I in favor of, yes, breed more Dobermans, put them out there? No. But if any of his dogs ever got out of their kennels, I know not of it. So I've got to give him credit on that one. But yeah, scary, noisy. Oh God, I shudder to think what would have happened if one of them had gotten out. So that is how that went. And I found it quite frightening.
Yeah, it's like living next door to like 4 tigers or something. Let's talk about how you interacted with puppies when you were a child, because that's another form of child endangerment that a lot of parents just like do not think about. But so yeah, go ahead and tell that story.
When I was about probably 5, maybe 6 at most, my maternal grandmother had this really sweet friend, nice lady, and she would go visit her a lot. So my grandmother took me on a visit. Okay, to visit her nice friend. And for whatever reason, I still cannot understand why people would do this even in that day and age. But this really sweet lady, okay, she had this mean old, very odd looking Boston Terrier type of dog. Okay. And this dog was not friendly. Never was. She just had a really nasty temperament, just how it was. And it was smaller than most Boston Terriers. But anyway, for whatever reason, the woman bred that dog. Now, a lot of little kids in the society hear, oh, puppies, oh, cool, or whatever. Wow. So when Jane Doe, not her real name, said that, oh, yes, I'm going to call the dog Mitzi or Bitsy, whatever it was. Oh, Mitzi had puppies. I was all excited. Oh, can I see what the puppies look like? So she said, oh, sure. So best of my recollection, the adults allowed me to go unsupervised to the barn where the dog was with her puppies. So I went to look, and I just knelt down near the dog's doghouse. And I didn't put my hands in there or make any movements, no. I was just seated, just trying to look, trying to see what the puppies looked like. And of course, the bitch started growling at me, was kind of snarling. So I slowly backed away. Now, it would have been nice if the adults had not bred more of that dog and had bothered to inform me that a dam is what a bitch is called once she gives birth to puppies, is especially dangerous, okay, guarding the pups. And that human beings, especially children, just should not attempt to interact with them. And it would have been great if the woman who bred that dog had bothered to come to the barn with me and supervise and stand between me and the dog, Then anyway, I got another lucky break and wasn't bitten. And I remember thinking, gosh, it's strange creatures, these dogs. Just about all the Snoopy cartoons, right? Because Snoopy, he's anthropomorphized, right? Like a human. And he's just a great helper. Lassie, let's not forget Lassie, the rescuer, who's always friendly and kind and good. These dogs I was encountering in real time, Junior, who's in the bag, and the bag is in the river. And then we got to go over my own little ugly Mutt, which if you want to put that picture up, feel free, because that's one fugly dog. And he used to growl at me. It was pretty nasty. And I told you about the story about the neighbor and all, and when he bit the neighbor. And the crazy Chihuahua, and it goes on. What I was seeing on TV and cartoons and all that was not matching up with my real world experiences, if that makes sense. So I was like, well, maybe I just need to find the right dog, or maybe it's something with me or whatever. Anyway, so I hope I didn't tangent off.
Not at all. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the depictions of cartoon dogs just not aligning with how dogs are in reality, and that's so dangerous, and it's deceptive. I would almost call it false advertising. And what you're saying about thinking that, like, oh, these are just some bad dogs, there are some good ones out there, surely, that's exactly what my husband thought when he was, I think, 10, and his neighbor or one of his friends had a guard dog. I think it was can't remember what breed it was, but he knew in that moment, like, I could die right now.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Luckily nothing ever happened, but it's just like, yeah, the depictions of like Lassie and these stupid mutts that are responding to cues for food. Like they don't understand what they're doing. They don't know that they're saving people. They're doing what they are trained to do for food.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
And also, it's my understanding that, like in movies and TV shows, what they do is if you see, let's say, a movie, full length feature film, with a dog in it, okay, the animal wrangler, it's not just one dog that is playing that entire little cute doggy role. No, 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 no. It usually takes about maybe 15 dogs, I think, that are made to look
Wow.
the same way. Yep, that wrangler works with, because when the dog's doing its whatever little stunts or acting job, the dog will quickly get fatigued and tired of the retakes and performing the same task. So they got to bring another dog in, okay, make it look the same to do the next scene or what have you. That's reality from what I understand. So, yeah.
Wow.
So that's also very deceptive, and people don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I can only imagine how many mutts must have been on set for the 101 Dalmatians movie.
Probably 101, literally.
Ah, shit everywhere is all I can think of.
Oh, God, yeah. And how many wranglers they would have had to have. And what is the next topic?
Yes. Moving on. I guess we could like keep expanding into dogs in movies because the
Sure.
Wizard of Oz and Toto, like that seemed
Oh,
to be
yeah.
a pretty defining moment. So yeah, go ahead, talk.
And so, yes, I was either 4 or 5, and as the fates would have it, and you've got the picture. Fetus me and my very own dog. Anyway, so I was like 4 or 5, and I was on a little swing set in the yard, and it was the first time I saw the Wizard of Oz and all that, and like as if magic, this little whatever mixed terrier thing wandered up to my swing set, and it sniffed my hand. Glad it didn't bite me. I thought, oh wow, Toto. Okay, so my family let me keep the thing, and I don't know what I saw in it other than the romance of Toto, the Wizard of Oz, you know, and it wasn't a large breed, so I thought it would be cool with me, like maybe picking it up and playing with it a lot. Nah, nah. Tried to pick it up and it would start to growl. Uh-oh. So couldn't do that. And I'm lucky I didn't get bitten. Um, and basically, I remember putting it in my toy wagon and hauling it around a little bit. Okay, it would let me do that. Um, and other than that, and it would let me sort of maybe scratch its ears a little. The rest of the time, it wandered around the acreage following my grandfather, because again, terriers were bred to be working breeds on farms. So during the day, it would just follow my grandfather around and maybe, chase a few squirrels or what have you. And so that was it. So, oh, yes, and he bit a neighbor.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was the Doberman neighbor.
Oh.
Yeah. And so my family and I were on some little vacation for like a week, and Toto we had a pretty decent setup for the dogs. Okay, a full basement with doggy beds and dish of water, whatever food, and it had a doggy door on the basement door, so they could go out into this big, huge fence, big, huge, great, wonderful fence, ideal, right? Well, somehow this little creep of a dog, Toto, had gotten out of his fence, and so the neighbor, he was keeping an eye out on our house, while we were gone. And he noticed it, and he managed to catch Toto, and he was going to gently and kindly just, he had the keys to the fence, put Toto back in the fence. Well, that little terrier bit the neighbor's hand, bit him a good one. So the neighbor had enough, and he just pitched him over that fence. It was a 10-foot fence. He just threw him over the fence. And it worked out. Yeah, it was fine. Dog was fine. And when he told my family what happened, frankly, we all laughed and said, well, yeah, the dog deserved it, Um, yeah, okay.
They get it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that was, and it did. And I kind of thought, well, it's funny. It didn't seem to bother the dog, but he was he could be a little creep like that. So, yeah, that was the great romance of, oh, Toto. Um, and, there was nothing particularly great. It was just, a childhood projection, of a fantasy of like, Snoopy or, Toto or blah, blah, blah. And I think about Toto and the Wizard of Oz. I look back at that film and you know how Dorothy and her family, they never bothered to keep that damn dog in a fence or a pen on their farm. Notice that? They had pens and fences. It was a farm. Why couldn't they have kept that dog at home in a pen or fence in the farm? And no, they let it run wild. It did bother, even though the Wicked Witch, Miss Gulch, she was right. They make her out to be a villain. She was right. The dog was a nuisance. Dorothy and her family were not being responsible for keeping that dog on their property and not letting it bother other people. And it was a terrier, right? And terriers, it is my understanding, they're working breeds and they can be plenty dangerous. So Miss Gulch, the villainess, was actually right. And Dorothy and her family were in the wrong about not being responsible for keeping that damn dog up on their farm in a pen so that it could not bother other people. Period.
Yeah, and people that point this out or, dare suggest that dog owners be responsible, they're always vilified. It's like the evil dog catcher. It's like, you know what? There wouldn't be people like this if you just kept your dog on your property. Like, do you just not care about it? Do you want your dog to get sucked up in a tornado? I mean, that would be kind of funny. I would like that. But it's like,
Yeah, well, yeah.
it's like you claim to love these dogs. Why don't you take care of them and keep your eye on them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I side with Miss Gulch on that. And that's the story of Toto. And he basically just hung out with my grandfather and was, he got his working breed instincts out doing that. And my grandfather kept an eye on him. And the neighbors were so far apart. It was cool because he didn't wander over anybody's yard. And none of the neighbors had kids. So it worked out. And plus, we lived on the big acreage in the backwoods. So it worked out where, other than me, that dog, there was no child endangerment, just me, if that makes sense.
It seems like your experience with dogs growing up seemed primarily negative.
Yes, sadly, yes. And um, looking back, it's astonishing to me. Okay, nowadays this would be called, I think, or I hope, child endangerment and some neglect and things like that. And it's astonishing to me, kind of sad. On an aside, a good thing is I've noticed that, for example, pediatrician offices and pediatric units in hospitals, they're starting to ask as part of normal questionnaires for patient intake and things like that and assessments, they will ask the families, are there any dogs at home? And if so, what type of breed?
Oh,
So I think that's a good thing.
wow.
I like,
Yeah.
yeah. So if for no other reason than data collection, that could maybe, you know, help things like, dogsbite.org and maybe get extra safety measures in place, or can be used to, in pediatrics or in medicine or public health to help start to warn people and caution people. So I think those are positive developments too. And
Yeah.
there was one thing I wanted to back up on. It touched on this, things you had mentioned about small dogs. Even if people might think, oh, this little Chihuahua or this Pomeranian, oh, they can't hurt a child. Well, you showed me the articles and you told me about how, okay, there was one where a woman had a Chihuahua and it ripped the woman's eyelid off. And there was another case where I think you sent me the link and I looked at it. Some people left a Pomeranian, one of those harmless little lap dogs. Oh my God, alone with a baby. And that Pomeranian killed that baby. So, folks, don't think because, oh, it's a small dog, you can't hurt it. Nope. Not true.
And all it takes is a tiny, tiny, tiny bite from a dog to get sepsis because they have capnocytophaga in them. So it's like, yeah, like, oh, it's a small dog. It's like, no, you fucking idiot. It can give you sepsis still. Shut the fuck up.
Oh, sure. God only knows how many microbes are in a dog's mouth. And of course, we know where their mouths go. I mean, well, yeah. You know, small dogs still don't ever think it's safe to leave a dog alone with a child of any age. So, anyway, and so lead the way, Chef. What is next?
So I think now would be a good time to talk about how your mother got an obsession with rescuing dogs.
God,
yeah, let's talk about
that. Now, fortunately, it seems that in this day and age, there is, I think humane societies, dog control / animal control, and veterinarians actually, I think, are warning people to never try to rescue a dog on your own or get a strange dog in your car or whatever. That's my impression now. And I'm glad that has, that's how things are going nowadays. Now, there was not a humane society or any kind of animal shelter. I don't even know if there was. I love what IHD calls it, dog control, instead of animal control, because dog control is a bit more apt. I'm not sure about that because one would think that surely there would be. Of course, I was a kid, so I don't know, some kind of animal control / dog control facility where if there's a rabid dog, they could, boom, go send someone to get it and get it, out of society. One would hope. But I know for a fact, there was no humane society or shelter. Okay. And sadly, lots of idiotic, irresponsible humans would just dump dogs that they didn't want on country roads. It didn't matter where. Okay. Or they'd allow their dogs to roam and that sort of thing. And some would show up. There would be stray, mangy dogs that show up next to the elementary school where I went to. They'd show up on school grounds. They would show up in the countryside. They'd wander up to our yard sometimes. You'd see strays that had been dumped out in forests. They were trying to, forage for food and all. So, of course, it's very sad. It really is. That I don't think that I'm not sure that some people were as aware of like zoonotic diseases and things like that as they are now, or even the child endangerment issue. It seems a little bit odd to me because there are some people who were well aware of not wanting a strange dog, especially a medium to large breed, around their children. But like I said, lots of unwanted dogs dumped anywhere and everywhere in those days in the county where I live, and no shelter. So spaying and neutering definitely needed to be encouraged. So my mother, for whatever reason, she had this like endlessly bleeding heart towards dogs. Oh God. And on the way home, the drive home, she would regularly see this very large black dog, long coat, looked like probably a mix of chow and something else. And chows can be very, very dangerous. And part of the woods of this old country road. So she could tell it was a stray. Saw it several times going home. So here we go, Snoopy pulling on the heartstrings. Okay. And what she would do is, and I forget my age. I might have been in third grade at the time. Let's say third. Yeah, probably about third grade. So here's what she would do. She would get some dog food and a pan of water, and she would go out and place it. She would pull the car over and on a country road, and she would place the dog food in a dish and a pan of water there where she'd seen this stray dog. Okay. And then she'd leave. And she would do this, regularly at intervals to try to like get the dog, essentially bait the dog so that she could get the dog into the car and try, I don't know, save the dog. Okay. Well, with absolutely no thought for my safety. Oh God. And thank goodness it worked out. And again, zoonotic diseases, parasites. The possibility of a stray dog having rabies.
Ooh.
Mom, did you ever think about that? Yeah. And here I was, what was I, 8? And so she finally, the dog appeared, didn't think my mother was a threat, and she finally coaxed the dog. I was in the back seat, 8 years old. She got the dog to get in the freaking car, in the back seat of the car with little old 8-year-old me.
Yikes.
Mom, what the hell were you thinking? And fortunately, I just sat there still, didn't touch the dog. Fortunately, the dog wasn't interested in me. And drove the dog home. She put the dog in the fence. And then she took the dog to a vet. Vet cleaned up the dog. Dog had heartworms, all this parasites, all this stuff. So they cleaned up the dog, got the dog medical care and all this stuff. Okay. And she kept this dog. The dog wasn't interested in me, didn't bother me. I'd occasionally talk to it, scratch it on the head. But fortunately, my grandfather liked this dog, and she liked to roam the acreage and chase the squirrels and the rabbits and followed my grandfather, okay, with the terrier around the acreage all day while he worked on land. And I didn't have any troubles with that dog because it was, so I'm glad. And she had obviously been mistreated a lot. It was sad, but, I'm glad the twain did not meet, so to speak. Didn't growl, didn't give me any problems. So that was good. But still, to put, like I said, oh my God, a strange stray dog that's been in the woods, medium breed or larger, in your car, sitting next to an 8-year-old child. And I mean, hello, like I said, rabies, anyone? Not to mention the other potential dangers of, do you want to risk your child's face getting ripped off? Or, it's astonishing to me how she could have been so blind to these obvious things where, some kind of dog nuttery took over and like displaced every bit of common sense or child safety issues. And we've seen this. We all have. If you watch TV for 5 minutes or YouTube and you see what is it, Pit Bull Lovers Anonymous and their great rescues and how we're saving some of the most dangerous creatures, and this is considered virtuous, right? And as if every concern for anyone else's safety just doesn't exist.
I'm thinking your mom was going through so much effort to try to, like, quote unquote rescue these mutts, putting out water and food and taking it to the vet. But did she ever do anything like that for a homeless person? Did she ever take a homeless person and have them sit in the back seat with you and take them to the doctor and give them food?
Good point. No, she never lured a homeless person into the car to sit back there with me. She never did. I gotta say. Now, there's some occasions where, when in her later years, there was a man who was homeless who'd ride his bike behind a Wendy's, and she would on occasion buy him some French fries, but she never invited him to get into her car or bring him home. So
Right.
yeah.
And just using dog nutter logic, because they love comparing dogs to humans. So it's like, I'll humor you for a bit. Would you take a homeless person and give it as much care as you would a stray mutt?
Yeah.
Probably
Exactly.
not. So.
Exactly. It was weird because she got into, like, there was this group of women, and it was all women, okay? And I think almost all of them had kids. She had a little boy who was like 6 or 7, and she was living on child support, some small amount of child support every month, okay? And she had all these dog kennels in her backyard and a fence. And my mom, I don't know how she met these people, but it was like this little, I don't want to say cult, clique, I guess would be a better term. All these women and their little kids who the women were out, like, there was like a bit of fanaticism about rescuing all these dogs and taking them to, I'll use a different name, I'll call her Elizabeth's house, where she had all the crates and kennels. Okay, and there were like even German shepherds, okay, that were in some of these kennels these women had rescued. And this woman, living on a meager income, as sort of like the ringleader of the group, with a 6, 7-year-old little kid. I'm thinking, is this some misplaced maternal instinct? What in the heck is going on? Looking back, and I mean, I'm all for getting stray dogs off the roads, out of the streets, away from the schools. Get them, yay, off, away. Because, they could hurt somebody. But anyway, since there was no shelter, which is terrible, and I don't know what animal control was doing, if much, in those days. It's a bit odd that they were doing all this rescue and rehabilitation kind of thing, and when they had kids or were single mothers from divorce and all that, very fragile kids, why they were putting all this effort and whatnot into dogs. Anyway, I'll give her credit. Elizabeth did get the local chamber of commerce, and my mother and I attended the meeting to establish a humane society, a shelter. It was very bare bones basic, but so that was good. And one time I went and looked and visited, and it wasn't luxurious. It wasn't like some multi-million-dollar building. Cool. But it was clean and sanitary. It was open air, but there were fans and things like that. And you could tell they would like mop the kennels with like food grade, whatever sanitizer stuff. It met the health department codes, appropriate water, food. I mean, it was certainly humane, and so it wasn't costing the taxpayer a fortune. And look, it was all dog, okay? And most of them, from what I could see, were like some rough looking, mixed mutt, a lot of German Shepherd mixes, dogs that were unwanted, okay? That pretty much, that almost no one would want to adopt, but okay. No one could say it wasn't humane. I like the fact that it was getting these dogs off the roads, off the streets, away from schools. It was bare bones, but it was certainly adequate. I would call it adequate and humane. It was clean, plenty roomy, safe, decent. And it wasn't costing the taxpayer some outrageous fortune. I don't know at the end of the day how adoptions, so to speak, were done, or at what point euthanasia came into play. Because of course, you can't keep them forever, but it was better than nothing, because there was a place for all these, instead of all these women getting dangerous strays off the roads and taking them home. Okay, someone else could do it. Thank goodness. Phew. So I'm glad that was accomplished. So the positive thing is, didn't cost the taxpayer a fortune. As I said, bare bones adequate. Okay, clean. No one could say it was not humane. And it got this canine detritus. Hopefully it protected human safety and got it, off the streets, off the roads, away from the schools. I mean, it was just seeing my mom and these other women doing this stuff. I look back and go, ugh, why? I didn't realize the danger that I was potentially in. I know this would be unthinkable to you, but God, if you had a little 8-year-old kid, would you invite a stray of any size, but especially some kind of big chow mixture, complete stray, into the car, the back seat of your car, with your 8-year-old child? What?
Only if it was ready for the rotisserie.
Yeah, completely prepared, skinned, dried, and
gutted,
in a Ziploc baggie, ready to go. My God, so I'm astonished. So it's sad to look back and see that as, it's like, did she have some temporary insanity? I wonder if dog nuttery is some kind of like, should it be in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that psychology and psychiatry uses, okay, for mental health conditions? But it's like when people get into that, it's like, common sense, normal, healthy standards of safety and whatnot just kind of go out the window. It's like a disorder or some great lapse in judgment, I think.
Yeah. Every dog nutter's risk assessment of canines is just completely unrealistic. It's like fantasy level.
That is an excellent way of putting it.
The facility that your mom and those group of women were able to get to function, is that still running today?
Well, the old one isn't. And I forget what year, I don't know, because, I hadn't been involved, so long, but, and plus I grew up and ended up, going away and being away. But when I came back, they have a big swanky building. It's come a long way. And this is kind of cool. They are right next door to animal control. And I think the buildings might even have an adjoining walkway or something. The buildings might be joined. And so they do fundraising and all. And there's some things I've told you behind the scenes that I think are going on, that I suspect that are going on, that are very positive and perfectly within the parameters of the law. But I don't want to get into that here, just in case, But so they do have a lot of charity fundraisers. I think they're doing good work. And when I went to adopt a cat, I love this. And this is what some people on social media are mad about. They don't, okay, you have to fill out an application. If it gets approved, then you have to make an appointment. You can't just go sailing through. They don't have, I call them drive-through adoptions. Nah. So I made an appointment, did all the stuff, the protocol, fill out the form, got approved, made an appointment. And they don't have, okay, it's not where you just go and it's all the animals, No. You go in, you see humans only. And then, like, I was there for cat, obviously. So I did not see, smell, or hear anything dog. It was great. I did not hear any barking. It was wonderful. I didn't have to see a dog, smell a dog, or hear a dog. It was just humans. Yeah. You go to the desk and humans, that's all you see. And cat room. And so they took me to a, locked, door, opened it. Yay. And there was the big cat room. So I stayed in the cat room, met the cats. Yay, adopted a cat. And again, I went to fill out the final paperwork and all, just humans and my kitty cat Betty that I adopted. And out the door we went after I finished that. So I like that process. Phew, so much better. So much better than the way a lot of other places do things, or the previous method where years ago, if you went in, they did have, outside, there were dogs and runs. Even inside, a friend of mine said, oh, yeah, they have a play area where people go take dogs they want to adopt. And then, ugh. So fortunately, things have changed a lot. I do suspect they have a good deal of awareness, possibly, about the dangers of the bully breeds, the Rottweilers, all that stuff. And I do suspect that, both animal control and the Humane Society are really looking at those things carefully. Now, do I know for sure? Have I had a conversation with them? No, I haven't. But I really do think there might be some awareness on their part. And that's cool. On social media, I've told you how there's some pit nutters, some pit bull fanatics, who, and these are just civilians, they're not veterinarians or anything, who are angry, very angry that animal control, like if someone hears that, oh, there's the pit bull or 3 at animal control, that local animal control will not just allow people, like if you or I were pit nutters and we wanted to just go to animal control, not through the Humane Society, but go to animal control and quote unquote pull the pit bulls they've got there, okay, and just say surrender them to us because we run a rescue. Animal control won't do that. There are people on social media who are livid and furious with local animal control because they won't just hand, oh, you want some pit bulls? Here, and hand them up. Oh, you say you run a rescue? So they don't want, they're angry because if they wanted to adopt any creature, they would have to go through all the protocols. Oh, and make an appointment even. So I know it sounds crazy. I had never heard of this practice of people claiming Oh, I run a rescue, and just going to animal control without any of these dogs, cats, or whatever being treated for any possible zoonotic diseases and that sort of thing, and just quote unquote pulling them from animal control and taking them home to whatever. It's bizarre.
Hmm.
So fortunately, animal control will not allow that. Neither will the Humane Society. So that's good. But it's odd. Pit nutters. I tell you, they're a special case. But I hope I haven't tangented off too much. But that was a little cha-cha that was going on not too recently. That I tried to very patiently and kindly explain all the risks involved. And anyway.
Yeah, and it's good that you do that and like other people are starting to speak up more about it because a lot of people just are simply unaware and they're confused by all this misinformation that all the pit nutters spread like, oh, pit bulls
Yeah.
are actually not as dangerous as other dogs. Like, oh yeah, what proof do you have to back that up? They just think that people aren't going to challenge them if they say this shit, but
Yeah. Oh, they're
people
all
are now.
just sweet, luscious babies. Well,
Ugh.
and I make sure I politely put up a please go to this, dogsbite.org, dogsbite.org. Please go and read this. And I post that, and I try to be really nice, polite, and reserved, um, because everyone likes a calm person, and so I keep trying to put that out there for what it's worth. But anyway, where do you want to go next? Do we want to talk about one of my father's other glorious little experiments in dog irresponsibility, the story about loophole at Lowe's?
Oh yeah, please tell.
Okay. Well, my dad, notorious for not being responsible for his dogs, he had this Australian Shepherd that he named Loophole. And anyway, his property was not very far from a Lowe's, hardware store, home improvement store. And so, not being one to have the decency to get a fence or even one of those like electrical underground fences that, you can put in the ground and then the dog has a shock collar and all that. So he let his dog just roam around. And a couple times the dog wandered off into the local Lowe's behind my dad's house. So the first time they called, he went and got his dog. The second time the dog, wandered through the open doors at Lowe's, they called and said to him, "Sir, if this happens again, we're sending your animal to animal control and we're not going to give you a call. So come get your dog and don't let it happen again." So for what he bothered to get his dog, and I don't know how he did it, but yep, he didn't let it happen again. But that's what it took, you know. I think, what the hell is wrong with these people in my family? But anyway, so that's loophole at Lowe's, and plenty of people, and they take their children there to Lowe's. So I can just see this essentially stray Australian Shepherd, medium-sized dog, just walking through the sliding doors and wandering through the store. So
I
that's
would mace
that.
that fucker. Like there's
I know.
no way I would let something like that happen if I could help it. But that's why I don't go to Lowe's or Home Depot because they are dog friendly.
Ugh.
So it's basically like, all right, I know not to shop at Lowe's. I know not to shop at Home Depot. Online
Oh yeah.
shopping.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
it's ridiculous that you need to threaten dog owners in order for them to be responsible because those people had to basically tell your dad like it's gonna be gone if you don't come
Yeah.
get it. I would have just called animal control. It's like you deal with that. I don't care. It's not my fucking dog. If
Yeah. Exactly.
if the owner really cared that much about it, then probably should have kept a better eye on it. But I would just assume that that owner does not care about their dog. So,
Oh yeah. Especially the second time it happened. Good
uh,
grief.
I remember in our interview, like I think it was sometime last year, if you can believe it. You were talking about how you were at the store with your dad, and he had the dog in the truck, and there were some people that came up and tried to approach the dog and rub on it.
Yeah. The idea that people they think they have some like magical powers to charm the dog, and yeah. And I was just standing by the truck, keeping an eye out. My dad was in the store, and oh God, And this is before the thing attacked me, but I remember being so scared. It was as if I couldn't say a word. These two women came up and they wanted to rub on him, to pat him, Grendel, the creature. And one lady, she stuck her face right up against the dog's muzzle and was just rubbing his cheek with her cheek. And I thought, I was getting really scared. I was thinking, oh my God, that thing could take her face off if, she touches it the wrong way or whatever. Unfortunately, it didn't. So I guess she thinks she's got magical powers with whatever canine. Anyway, thank God nothing bad happened. But yeah, that's really scary. And that woman did that, that anyone would do that. But yeah, oh well. Lunatics abound. What can I say? But yeah, definitely never, ever, don't ever approach somebody else's, don't approach a dog, period. But a stranger's dog and sticking your face near its muzzle is just begging for trouble.
It's like sticking your foot in a lawnmower.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or, go dancing through some landmines or something like that.
Tap dancing through landmines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yet another reason why one should never, ever, ever, ever leave a child alone with a dog. There was a documentary about this, and this poor woman is so damaged by what happened to her and skewed her sexuality. Okay. According to the documentary, I think she was about 5 years old. Okay. She was alone with a non-neutered Malamute, I believe. She was by a swimming pool, and she'd been able to pick up, like some little floater toy to get in the pool. And the non-neutered Malamute, and that little girl went down to pick up her toy. That dog raped her. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's disgusting. So just so people can be aware, yes, a non-neutered male dog can and will sexually assault a human female of any age.
And a male, for that matter.
Sure.
Like, there are these horrible, horrible, horrible fucking videos out there of these parents. I don't even think they should be called parents. They're filming their dog raping their baby, and the baby is crying, clearly distressed. And the parents just think it's so funny. They think it's the funniest thing. I'm like, I want to fucking bash these people in the head for that. Like, you do that to your child, you don't deserve to have a child.
Exactly. It's like, where's Department of Family and Children's Services or Child Protective Services?
For real. If you want to have any last words or what you want people to know about dogs if they don't understand the risks of dogs, what would you say to those people?
First, never, ever leave a child alone with a dog. Rule number one. Don't get involved with trying to rescue or pick up strays or whatever. No, call animal control, okay, to do that. And just be aware that, okay, the dog-averse community, dog haters, whatever, we're about public safety for everyone, from the cradle to the grave. We don't want to see anyone getting mauled or torn up or killed by dogs. And we have some concerns about the impact that a lot of the products and whatnot and foods and all this stuff for dogs, the impact this stuff does have on the environment too.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a very informative, very insightful interview, and I think it's going to help a lot of people out here. I know it's hard for people to speak out about this, and the ones that do speak out about it, like Jacqueline Durand, it seems like all she cares about is just defending the dog, saying like, oh, it wasn't the dog's fault, I did this. Oh, I'm getting over my fear of dogs. It's like, why is it so hard for dog attack survivors to just talk about the realities of dogs? So I can't thank you enough for speaking out on this issue and wanting to be featured on this channel.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks so much for your time and dedication and everything you have done and continue to do. Well, anyway, signing off. I wish you a great rest of your day, Chef. See you at Yulin. I'll bring the spices.
Thank you.
Take care. Much love.
You as well.